else comes, we'll invite them in.
All right, I don't have any statements today. I'm just here to make myself available. Good questions.
Good questions. You did put out a little statement on Mitt, but any other thoughts on him not running? And do you see any role for him here in Utah, since he's apparently a Utah now?
Yeah, you know what? I think that Mitt Romney is a big thinker. I think I've enjoyed his as he's run, he's espoused issues, and they just resonate with me. And I would love to see him stay in the arena, so to speak. I would love to see his involvement. I have great respect for him and the things that he's advocated for or espoused. You know, I said the "I told you so" tour that I put in my comment. The one debate that comes to mind is when the president said they want their Cold War back, when he was worried about Russia. Well, let's look at Russia. Let's look at Let's look at Crimea. Let's look at what's happened in that part of the world since that debate. And I think you could point to the comments made there and look at who was looking at the long view and looking at what trouble might be on the horizon, and who thought it was laughable and thought it was a punchline. And I just think those are the kind of things that would have been fun to see on campaign. I think there were a couple things that I thought I saw him doing as he was kind of just testing the waters. And one was, I think a sign of a humble guy is he doesn't want to brag about himself. But there's a lot about Mitt Romney that would endear you to him, that he wasn't willing to share about his personal life. And I think some of that he was becoming more open about. I think if America could have known that side of Mitt Romney, I think that it might have changed some of the narratives. And I thought maybe that's what he was starting to do. I was surprised at the announcement that he wasn't going to ultimately run. I got to tell you, I'm not overly excited, and I'm willing to say it on the record. I'm not really excited the Republican bench for president right now. There's not anyone that's really getting me excited about the race. We had Governor Kasich from Ohio come through. He was an impressive fellow. Governor. I like speaking with him. It was fun to get to know him a little better. And maybe if he were a candidate, I think he would raise the debate and the level of dialogue going on. But the names I'm hearing right now, none of them are really, I think, exciting.
Did you were you kind of a John Huntsman Jr. supporter?
Well, I got a rule. If a guy can spot you in a room and knows you by first name, and he's running for president, you probably ought to support him. That's just my rule. So yeah, I've worked with the governor on some critical issues. I felt like we were able to get some great things accomplished. He as governor and myself as a lawmaker. And if you've had that relationship and that person is making a run for governor, what an exciting prospect. So yes, I was supportive of Governor Huntsman.
I'll just go ahead. The Democrats kind of had a presser today talking about some of their priorities: education, healthcare, living wage, things that they've perennially talked about, and say that, get education not funded to the level that they have wanted over the years, that sort of thing. Where do you see some of their priorities fitting in with some of the Republican priorities?
Dennis, I gave a speech on the first day of the session, and I touched on education. I touched on healthcare, Healthy Utah. We touched on transportation infrastructure. We talked about the economy and how important that economy is to the rest of the things that happen. Politicians can draw any number they want on a budget and say this is what we want taxpayers to pay, but it takes an economy and it takes people earning a wage and sending in their taxes for all this to happen. And so talking about the economy and how it furthers all these goals that we talk about is essential. And I think of the issues you just brought up, I think we share. Now we might have different ways to get there or different paths up the hill, but those are critical issues. And I would share our concern on those fronts.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, this week there's been a lot of controversy after the press conference that the LDS Church had about the LGBT rights and the religious discrimination. What movement do you think the state of Utah will see on those issues?
You know what, there's a lot has changed in the debate simply with that, you could call it an historic announcement from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is one that I think adds a lot of context to the idea that we treat each other right, that we not have disparate treatment, and I think the point of that announcement was that the world ought to be a two-way street, or we ought to apply the golden rule where those kinds of principles or that kind of goal of how we treat one another should apply, whether it's to following your faith or the makeup of your household. It ought to be seen in the same eye, that we treat each other with respect and with dignity and respect the opinions held by people. And so I think that we've all felt that way already, where I think the announcement makes it, I really think that with that announcement comes this desire to maybe look at with one eye, instead of you have in the Senate, you'll have an anti-discrimination bill. And in the House, I believe you have at least one religious liberties bill. And I think it's always been looked at one or the other. And I think that announcement says, look, we've got to start looking at this as the same endeavor. It's the same endeavor in terms of how we treat one another. And I feel that that's a good approach, and one that we here in the legislature will add to the debate on these issues and these fronts. It's not going to be, someone asked me, is this fast tracked? Are you going to get this? You show me the bills that are fast tracked. Usually that's not a good thing. People kind of resent fast track legislation around here. There's a deliberative process by design, and that issue, like every other issue, will go through that deliberative process. So, but it's big. It really does change the debate.
You might have addressed this earlier this week too. Do you see these things being folded into a single bill ultimately?
I do. I think that's where it will go. Look, you're going to have different versions, and you're going to have different. I mean, we're 104 lawmakers, and you're not going to. Not everyone subscribes to the same playbook. So you're going to have probably bills that maybe touch on different points. But I think a bill that would address both and kind of be consistent with that announcement could find its way into a single bill. I think so.
Let's just do a couple more questions.
Okay.
Who are going to be the key players in that issue, you think?
I'm not prepared to name any names that aren't already attached to bills right now, but I will tell you that it's not an issue that's just myopic or just being discussed by a few. As colleagues, we've been talking about this, and I think something of that kind of a bill like that, with all the emotions attached and all the strong opinions, is going to require bill sponsors that are leaders, that will be able to move opinion and bring people together. And so, if you saw a bill like that was taking on those two concepts under one bill, these are going to have to be particularly strong lawmakers that have that skill set to be able to do something like that.
Were this bill or multiple bills to be passed, what kind of change do you think we could see in Utah in the future?
Well, okay, so I think there's an important message being sent. There's an ordinance that Salt Lake City passed, an anti-discrimination ordinance. And my day job is I work in downtown Salt Lake City, and in principle, that ordinance would influence renters or renting situation. The issues that ordinance was addressing are ones that are never issues for me, nor do I think they're ones that landlords or those that would look at housing or multifamily. I don't believe anyone's being refused the opportunity to rent an apartment because of their sexual preference. To me, I looked at that ordinance when it was being passed as more of a message to society or to a community. These are things that we value or hold as important. I think in the time since that ordinance has been in effect, I don't know that they've had a complaint that's gone through their process. And so I think my my feelings about why that was brought out have borne out. So what will change? I don't know that a whole lot will. I gotta believe that this is the state of Utah. I think the people here are good. I think we feel strongly that we want to treat each other with respect and with dignity. And I think it's as important to say that and to express it. But will it change overnight people's behaviors? I don't see it. Maybe I'm not privy to the times for things to happen where people are discriminated against, whether it is for their faith or for their lifestyle. But I don't know that you'll see a very different Utah than we see now. I think Utahns are good people. We're hardworking. I think there's an incredible amount of love and support that we find within our community. I think isn't Utah one of the highest charitable states in the nation in terms of our charitable contributions and how we give? I think the spirit of Utah stays just as it is. I just think we just gather around some common principles and beliefs that I think are important for people to know.
Okay, thanks guys.
Seattle or New England?
Seattle, baby. Richard Sherman.